Very excited for this today. We are joined by the host of Gent Talk, a massively successful podcast for men's health. Speaker, host, runner, husband, all-around badass dude, and I mean that in the best way possible. Samir Mourani, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
This is the Pooja and Gurdeep podcast.
From 98.1 CHFI Studios in Toronto, Canada.
Hey Toronto, this is Ed Sheeran.
This is Kelly Clarkson.
Hi, this is Bryan Adams.
This is Adele.
This is Madonna.
It's Michael Bublé, and you're listening to the Pooja and Gurdeep Show.
It's fun. They're amazing.
Look, there's so much we want to get to with you from your podcast, the backstory, it blowing up. It's Men's Health Awareness Month as well, but I want to start with this, the story of how you and I met.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've only known you for like a couple of months. So you and I were both invited to a men's health event that was at a private box at a Blue Jays game, regular season. I want to say this was like September or so. And there was like 15 people in this box, great spread, Blue Jays game. And I ended up chatting with a bunch of people. I sat beside you at one point, introduced myself, and I almost immediately sort of lost interest in the Jays game. And I'm a huge baseball fan because I felt this immediate connection with you. And I don't know if you just have this ability with people, but we immediately, and I don't know who started it, we immediately got into discussing vulnerable topics, talking about our emotions, talking about some things that have happened to both of us personally. And as the words were coming out of my mouth, I'm like, I don't normally share this with someone I barely know this quickly. Does that track for you? Because that's how I remember it. Is that how you remember our meet?
Yeah, exactly. Mad Max was on the mound. It was a good game. They won that game.
They did.
And that's all you remember.
That's all I remember. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But we sat down and just normal introductions, and I think you just asked what I did, and I just said, I run a men's health podcast, and I think that triggered something for you because that topic's, after our conversation, that seemed to matter to you. But I think why you might have been more inclined to share something was because I do this intentionally. I always start by telling you something about me, and it's usually something profound, something challenging that has happened to me, with the intention of leading with vulnerability. And if you reciprocate, great. If not, that's okay too. But by doing that, you opened up to me in return. And then since then, we've brokered an incredible relationship because of that one conversation. And that's what leading with vulnerability will do.
So it's intentional.
Always.
And I should say, since then, I have guested on your podcast, Gent Talk, and we had a wonderful conversation. People can check that podcast out. You want to throw out the Instagram handle?
Please. It's Gents Talk Pod or just Gents Talk on all podcast platforms.
I'm so glad that you said that it's intentional, because one of the things we joke about all the time is how bad I am at small talk. And it's because I think small talk sometimes is just sort of vapid and a waste of time. Yeah. Whereas I'm very good at having deep conversations where I'm actually connecting with people. And I think those are the ones that you walk away with and you learn something and you feel good and you feel like you've had this shared experience. So that must be what it's like for you all the time.
Yeah. In my friends group, I'm known as the guy that'll start the heavy conversations. We took a trip to Italy, my wife and a few of our friends, and every night over dinner, I'd start by asking them questions about their lives, and by the end of the night, everybody was crying or in their feels, but we bonded and our connection grew because of that. Similar to you, I don't care for small talk. There's enough of that. Hey, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. End of conversation. If you're not going to have a meaningful conversation with someone, if you're not going to build a real connection to them, what's the point? We're social animals. We crave connection. And I think over the last few years, we've lost the ability to do that. The pandemic played a role in that when we were all in isolation and we forgot how to socialize. So I want to try and bring that back by simply just being me and going, hey, this is who I am. This is some of the stuff that's happened to me in my life that's shaped who I am today. If you're going to ask me what I do or who I am, I'm not going to give you a surface level answer. And like I said, if you reciprocate, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I'll try again.
Samir, you're in an elevator with someone, 15 seconds. You got to connect with them. What do you do? What do you say when you got that very little window of time to connect with someone?
I'd introduce myself as a storyteller. I tell them that I share my own story around men's mental health and the importance of it, but I also help amplify other people's stories, because everyone has a story, and it doesn't matter what your social following is. It doesn't matter what your accolades are, how many plaques you have on the wall. What matters is you, and you have a story, and I want to hear it.
Ding.
Wow.
That's your floor.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's pretty good. He got it into time.
It's better than me saying I like your tie.
Yeah. How's the weather, man?
Yeah, I like that. And let's talk about November being all about men's health. And you have a podcast that is about men's health. Why did you want to focus on that specifically?
Can I share my backstory?
We'd love to hear it. That's what we were going for.
2020. I had checked off all of the boxes that I was told as a man I should be checking off. I had a great job. I had great pay. I was traveling the world. I was married. The next on the list of to-dos was to have kids. And I felt complete and content. And what I was doing really and truly was ignoring whatever was happening beneath the surface, because I had gotten so good at doing that. And like all relationships, two people play a role, and it fell apart. And one day my ex basically just said, this isn't for me anymore, and packed her bags and left. And instead of dealing with the emotions, I buried them. I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go out. I'm going to drink. I'm going to party. I'm going to distract myself. Sports on TV. I'm going to work long hours. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to not feel a single emotion. And it worked. It worked great, actually. But then the pandemic happened, and suddenly I'm in isolation, and I'm sitting in a condo in Toronto, the symbol of whatever success means or meant to me. And I was broken, and realizing that that version of masculinity that I was working so hard to prop up wasn't working for me anymore, because I had all this pain, all these emotions boiling to the surface, and I just couldn't keep them down because there's no more distractions. There's no sports on TV. You can't go out. You couldn't even go to the gym. You couldn't even go for a walk. And one night, it all kind of boiled to the surface. I remember going to wash my face because the tears were just overflowing. It was a painful type of tear, right? Like the one where your body is tense. Mm. And after washing my face, I looked up in the mirror and I saw my own demon in the mirror looking back at me. I'm like, I don't recognize who this man is. And I took a photo of it because I was like, I need this to be my reminder of what rock bottom looks like. And from that moment on, I told myself, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't live like this anymore. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the other side looks like. I just know I don't want to be a statistic in some report on men's mental health. And so I started to do some research, started reading, learning, talking, fumbling my way through conversations, seeing a therapist for the first time. And I hated it. And I was just like, every fiber of my being was like, no, only crazy people talk to therapists. You don't talk to therapists, because that's what I grew up with. But I tried and I failed and I tried and I failed until I finally started to overcome and learn lessons from other men in my life and piece things together. And when I kind of started to come out the other side, I was like, I can't be the only guy that felt this way. Guys have this tendency to think that their situation is unique. It's not. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of other men who are experiencing something similar or worse. Mm. And I needed to get out of my own way and realize that I had some new tool that could potentially help someone else. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And that's when I was like, you know what? Whatever I do next, whatever that thing is, I want some part of it to be related to helping other men become better versions of themselves, because they might be in relationships that they could still save. They might have relationships with their family, their kids, their parents, their siblings, their coworkers that they could still save. They don't have to wait until rock bottom. Instead of waiting to go see a doctor because you're in pain, go see the doctor to make sure you don't become in pain. And that was the idea behind it.
Man, it's such a noble approach and a noble, massive subject to try and tackle. How did that lead to Gent Talk? So this happened 2019, 2020. Yeah. When was Gent Talk born, and when did you feel like, okay, I'm gonna start a podcast with this?
Yeah, so in the middle of the pandemic, a friend of mine, Stephen Branco, reached out and said, hey, I would love to chat about doing some work together on a publication called Gent's Post, lifestyle content. I was like, it's the pandemic. I'm open to exploring new things. Let me try it. We got on a call and we started talking about how, it's nice to talk about what LeBron James wears to every game, but why don't we talk about the fact that LeBron James also speaks to a mental health coach, just like all pro athletes. Let's talk about grooming and confidence and dating. And if you're a man that's balding and you're insecure about it, what do you do? How do you have that conversation? And so we started creating Gent's Post, this platform designed to talk about lifestyle, but also about the topics that men don't like talking about. And about a year into it, an agency reached out and said, "Hey, Samir, do you want to interview Russell Peters?" And I was just like, hell yeah, like, absolutely. Are you crazy? And I hung up and I was like, you know what? I love podcasts. I had fallen in love with them as I was learning in my own journey. And I've always, been like, oh, it'd be so cool if I ever had one day. Why don't I try this? Like, why don't I take every lesson I've learned about overcoming fear and failure and try to do something I've never done before, don't have the skill set for? And called them back and said, hey, can I get them on video? And they're like, sure. Can you tell us about the series? And I was like, it's about men's health and, his career and ABC. And they're like, okay, great. I was like, okay, thank you. And I hung up and I spent literally the rest of the day searching up how to start a podcast, from like, what gear do I need to what a studio looks like. And I don't understand the tech that's needed. So I was like, all right, I need to hire a videographer. I need to find a studio. I was name dropping Russell wherever I could. People started willing to give me things to make it happen. And then the day of the shoot arrives. At this point, I was just like, we'll call it Gent's Talk. Gent's Post, Gent's Talk.
Sure.
Like, let's just figure that out after. He arrives, and firstly, he's like 3 hours late.
Oh my God.
So yeah,
that's even bad for Indian Standard Time.
But you can imagine, I'm sitting here, and I've got a room full of like a dozen people that I've told this story to, and they're sitting there waiting for Russell to show up, and they're looking at me like, what's happening? The studio owner comes by. He's like, I gave you the space. I could have been renting it out to someone. Oh, man. Like, what's happening here? And I was like, he's coming, I promise. I'm like furiously texting the PR agency, like, hello, like, what's happening? Then I get a magical text. He's 5 minutes away. He comes in, he sits down, he diffuses the obvious tension in the room with humor, and then he goes, Samir, what's this about? Because I guess nobody had told him.
Oh no.
So I was just, before I could think, I blurted out, I'm trying to redefine what it means to be a man today. And he like goes, what does that mean? Like, what are you trying to do here? Because at the time, there's so much noise of like, what does it mean to be a man? Are you too weak? Are you too soft? Are you too hard? Like, there's a social discourse around that. And I go, honestly, the pandemic sucked for me. I'm in at that point, I was still in the middle of a very messy divorce. And it's hard, and I know a lot of people have struggled with it, and I just want to know how it was for you. And he goes, okay. And about 5 minutes into the conversation, he goes, Samir, the pandemic was really hard for me too. My ex and I split up, and I've got fame, I've got fortune, I could go anywhere, talk to anyone, and none of that mattered because I couldn't see my son. So here's this generational comedian saying something so profound to a stranger and another man at that point. And to me, that was lightning in a bottle. And I was like, all right, there is something here. Maybe the story I'm telling is not my own, it's someone else's. And if I could do that every time, and in the middle, maybe I could sprinkle my own story, that'd be great. And it just kept compounding. And then every time I posted an episode, someone else would be like, I'd love to have this conversation. But it reinforced this idea that men are just waiting for permission to talk. They want to be asked, because they're afraid that if they're the ones that lead with vulnerability, if they're the ones that go, hey, can I have this conversation, that they'll be shut down, because for most of their lives, they'd been shut down.
It's interesting because when I think about Russell Peters, obviously humor is a big part of who he is, and he probably uses it in many ways. And it can be a defense mechanism as well, of not having to deal with or talk about your problems. So how do you have him on your podcast and you're not joking around? Like, for him, was this really the first time that anybody asked him about something serious? Because he's Russell Peters.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is, firstly, he was using humor throughout. Like, he is exactly who you think he is. But before he came in, during that 3-hour window, I was just searching up interviews he had done to try to understand his cadence and how he speaks. And he had done an interview where someone on a television show had asked him, like, hey, it's the pandemic. How's life for you? And he's like, it's hard. And he kind of paused, hoping, from what I could tell, to be prompted. And the host just sort of glossed over and said, "So, what do you got coming up when you come back to Toronto?" And you could see him, like, you could almost see it in his eyes, kind of like, okay, and pivot. And so that's why I intentionally wanted to ask him that question, because I realized in that moment, I was like, I didn't know what I was going to get, but if he gave me anything, that was an opportunity. And we did a collab on Instagram for that very post. And he DM'd me afterwards. He's like, I didn't realize I went so deep that day. Like in the moment, he didn't even realize what he was doing. Because again, it's just waiting, similar to the way you started this conversation off. You didn't realize you were having that conversation until you caught yourself. You're like, holy, I'm talking about some stuff that I don't normally talk about. But it's because we've bottled them up for so long that we've been just waiting and inching for the opportunity just to go, hey, life has been hard, and I just want to get this out of me because it's really hurting me.
I can relate to that. I mean, when I sat down and did the podcast with you, I didn't know where it was going to go. We didn't discuss what we were going to talk about, and it got real vulnerable and raw and emotional, and we went to some really incredible places. And, you know, to use another baseball analogy, I think when a celebrity sits down with you, it's like you throwing a change-up pitch, right? These celebrities often go to these junkets, you know, a media outlet gets a few minutes with them. They get asked the same 3 or 4 cookie-cutter questions. They get to put that mask on and just sort of almost go on autopilot. I think when someone sits down with you and you get to a different topic, you get to the human side of them, you really get something profound, something special, something unique. And you mentioned lightning in a bottle with Russell. I mean, that obviously seemed to connect because it's like snowball down a hill. I mean, your podcast has really taken off, and you've landed many other massive celebrities. I don't want to sit here and name drop, but I'm going to ask you to name drop. Like, tell us about some of the other celebrities you got, maybe an example of, you know, a response you got from someone that we just wouldn't know or think about.
The musician James Blunt.
The Pooja and Gurdeep Podcast.
This is the Pooja and Gurdeep Podcast.
Tell us about some of the other celebrities you got, maybe an example of, you know, a response you got from someone that we just wouldn't know or think about.
The musician James Blunt. So Warner Music reached out and said, hey, James is coming into the city. We want him to have a conversation that's beyond anything he's done. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. It's James. And he came in, he sat down, and we talked for an hour. And once the recording ended, he turned to me and he goes, you know, Samir, in all my years doing interviews, Rolling Stones, Time, People, all these big publications, all these big outlets, he's like, I've never once had an opportunity to speak as James the man and not James Blunt the artist. And this was the first time I got to speak about my emotional trauma, being emotionally stunted because of the way his parents just threw him into military school as a kid, his relationship with Carrie Fisher and how that really profoundly impacted him during her passing. So here he is talking about these things so openly, and he's like, I didn't know I needed to say a lot of that. I did an interview, I flew down to LA and did an interview with Justin Baldoni as well, and the producer turned to me and said, I don't know what you did or said, but he hasn't been in the studio in a year, and he came in to have this very conversation. And it was about his relationship with his father. It was about his relationship with his son and how he's navigating the ups and downs of trying to be a good man. My favorite, you know, I get asked often, you know, like, what was my favorite episode?
You better say Gurdeep.
Yeah, no pressure.
Naturally. But it was less so my favorite episode and more so my favorite wow moment. And it was Chef Devin Rajkumar who turned to me and said, I didn't know that it was okay to not be okay. And that was the first time someone said those words to me, and I just thought, like, I have never framed it that way. I've never realized that when you're not feeling okay, because men are taught when you're not feeling okay, you suppress it because that's weakness. And if an emotion has to come out, it typically comes out in the form of anger because that's the only acceptable emotion that men are allowed to show. You show sadness, you show fear, you might get criticized by your peers, you might get criticized by your partner. Not valid for the most part, but that's this internal fear and this internal dialogue that we tell ourselves. Arianna Huffington calls it the obnoxious roommate that lives upstairs in your head, constantly yapping away at you, telling you that you're not good enough or you shouldn't be doing this. So when Dev said that to me, I was just like, I literally went home and I told my wife, I'm like, I didn't know that it was okay to not be okay. And here I am doing the work, but I still am learning from these incredible people that join me.
It's fascinating to me that, you start a podcast, something you're very passionate about, but you're not an expert, right?
No.
I mean, you're coming to this interview with maybe not all of, the advice and all the things to say when sometimes you're hearing some pretty heavy things. Do you think maybe the key perhaps in why people open up to you the way they do is that you're just a really good listener?
If you can tell that to my wife. I think, I don't want it to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. I think I have this natural curiosity that I just want to learn. And I told myself when I started my journey in 2020 that it's never going to end. There's no end to that journey. There will never be a point where I wake up and I go, I've learned everything I need to learn. I am healed. I am good. I am done. That will constantly be a journey because there will be things that come up in my life that make me go, oh man, I don't actually know what to do here. Right? Like we all go through them, right? Whatever is happening in your life, the worst thing that happened in your life yesterday may pale in comparison to what happens 10 years from now, right? We just don't know. And so I'm constantly curious. It's also why I don't script the conversations because I don't know where they're going to go. It's just this natural curiosity to go, hey, how are you? Tell me about your story. And as you're asking questions in the same way we're talking now, I'm like, okay, but what about this? What did you do here? Why? What was the lesson you took from that? Because at the same time, there's going to be people listening and watching who go, it was really good to hear your story, but what did you do? Because I'm going through something like that and I need help. I need a blueprint because I don't have someone in my life that I can turn to. And I want the podcast to be that friend to people that gives you the advice, that helps you when you need someone, which is why I have such a wide variety of talent, but also experts, nutritionists, psychologists, performance coaches, you name it, because I want this platform to be a place where people can come in and go, what am I dealing with today? And kind of going through the catalog. Okay, I'm working on my health journey. This is the episode I want to listen to.
Yeah, you don't script the podcast. And I think that was one of the most refreshing things about sitting down with you is not knowing where it was going. You didn't have paper in front of you. And it's a testament to you as an interviewer, right? To your active listening and your quick thinking on your feet. I mean, that's something we both really appreciate. You also don't script your life because if someone had told you, what year are we in, 2025, 5 years ago, that you would be divorced and you would go through everything you just chronicled for us, you'd have this hit podcast. But I want to tie a bow in the love life part because you mentioned wife in present tense as well. So tell us how you got from divorced and broken, podcast takes off, and now you are married again as of this year. Congratulations.
Thank
Yay!
you. Yeah.
I love love.
She loves love.
Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, so do I. My wedding day was the best day of my life.
Oh.
Mila is a godsend to me. Like, I don't know what I've done in this life to, someone upstairs is looking out for me because they put her in my life, and I was very fortunate. I met her 6 months after my ex and I had split up, and I wasn't ready to date. So when I was, it's the middle of the pandemic, the people in my life were like, you should try dating. It might help you move into that next stage. At this point, the divorce is like fully raging on, very challenging, keeping me up at night, the anxiety, the fear, the legal fees. Like, I'd get an email from my lawyer and I just wouldn't look at it for 2 days because like it would just induce so much anxiety. And I was like, this is the first time I'm feeling anxiety to this degree. And so I went on a dating app, hated it, deleted it. And then I was like, well, it's a pandemic. How am I going to meet anybody? If I want to try to move forward, I got to work through this. Downloaded, it was Tinder, downloaded it again. We matched. I sent her a note. She didn't respond. I was like, well, I'm going to try one more note and then I'm going to delete this thing again. So I sent a follow-up. She had this photo of her in what looked like Petra in Jordan. And so my note was just like, hey, is that Petra? Right? Like, I was genuinely curious. Not a great opening line, but
she's like, I have, this is what color my eyes are. Like, do you have any other comments?
I'm going to try that line. I'll report back, see if it works.
Please let me know. And she responded eventually just saying, sorry, I don't check this app. I don't actually like being on here. But this is Lebanon. This is a place in Lebanon. And I was like, oh, I'm from Lebanon. And she's like, oh, I'm like, are you? And she's like, no, I'm from Azerbaijan, but my stepdad is from Lebanon. So we go regularly, and we connected. And at the time, I was delivering food on Uber as a side job to my well-paying job because I was basically running out of money. Legal fees were racking up, and I needed the extra cash. And so we went on our first date. It was great. We went for a walk.
She gave you 5 stars.
Well, the Uber story I'll get to in a moment. I'll never forget how, like, the gesture. But we went for a walk on our first date, and then I was like, wow, I wasn't actually trying to be in a relationship. I was just trying to, like, do the dating thing.
I just wanted to learn more about Petra.
Yeah. And we ended up going on a second date. And on our second date, my phone starts blowing up. There's some new drama with the divorce. My lawyer and my former brother-in-law, everyone's texting me. My phone's
like
going
a movie.
off. I'm sitting in front of her, and she's like, do you need to take that? And I was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. So I step away to take it, which is a red flag in most cases. It's like second date. It's my former brother-in-law on the phone telling me all these different things, and I'm looking at her as he's talking. And for the first time since all of this happened, I was in this, like, weird place where I was like, I can't deal with this right now. I'll call you back. And he's like, you have to deal with it right now. And I'm like, I can't. And I just hung up on him. And I sat down. She's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, I kind of wasn't planning on telling you this for, like, till date 8, hoping by then you'll like me enough to stay through the story. But here it is. And I told her everything. How I failed as a husband, where I could have been better as a partner, what journey I've been on, what I've been trying to do. Like, I was just naked. Here I am. And she sat there, and I was like, listen, if you want me to drive you home and you don't want to talk, this is too much for you, I totally get it. It'd be disappointing because I'm starting to like you, but I would get it. And she pauses, and she goes, you know what? And I'll never forget this. She's like, you tried at life and you failed, but you're showing up and you're trying again and you've learned from it. She's like, I can't blame you for trying. And since then, we haven't stopped talking. The Uber story. One day I was on the phone with her, and I was delivering food, and I walked into this restaurant, and I tried to pick up the food, and they're like, where's your heat bag? Your insulin bag to, like, keep the food warm. And I was like, I don't have one. And they're like, well, we can't give you the food. I'm like, just give me the food. I was starting to get angry because I hated doing Uber to begin with. I'm like, in my head, I was like, this is beneath me and all that. And now I've got the utmost respect for drivers and the stuff that they do. It's not easy. And I left, and I was so angry. And I called her, and I was like, this is what just happened to me. And literally the next day, I get a delivery from Amazon, and it was a heat bag that she ordered for me. And to this day, that's still the best gift I've ever received from anyone. And she would sit in the car with me while I was delivering food to keep me company because she knew how much I hated it, but she knew that I needed to do it as I was going through my divorce.
Oh my
Does
God.
she have a sister? Because I know somebody who's single. Yeah.
Ready to mingle. Yeah.
I love that story. And I imagine, just like we talked about your first meeting with Gurdeep and, like, what you open with, and that you're intentional about what you open with because you don't like small talk. What is a first date like with you then? Do the same rules apply, or were you not at that point in your life?
At that point, when her and I met, I wasn't there yet. I used a lot of comic relief. I was more so just trying to get her to like me because I had this stigma in my mind of the divorce guy dealing with a legal settlement and delivering food on Uber. I was like, I'm not a catch. Like, this is not stuff I put in my bio. And so I was trying to paint this picture for her of who I was. And then as I got to know her, I started to learn more about how, to her, authenticity meant more. She wasn't going to be impressed by taking her to a fancy restaurant. She wasn't, she's successful at what she does. That doesn't mean anything to her. It's the authenticity. It's the ability to keep up with her intellectually, to make her laugh, to be kind. Those were the things that mattered to her. But in my mind, I was walking into the dating scene thinking like most men do. I got to show off how much money I make. I got to show off, who I know, where I go, what I wear, what I drive. And it's made me come to this conclusion that if you're ever going on a first date and you really want to get to know someone, take them to a coffee shop. Mm-hmm. You can't, you wow them with everything else. You're building a show, mm-hmm. right? Pull the curtain back. Mm-hmm. How dressed up are you going to get for a coffee shop? Mm-hmm. All that you do at a coffee shop is talk. And that's how you really get to know someone. And then maybe for your second date, you go somewhere nice. Because now at this point, you're like, this is a person that I can see something with, and I want to take you there.
Because there's all these rules, right? For like first dates and what you're allowed to talk about, not allowed to talk about. I know for me personally, with my husband, we talked about everything. I like blurted it all out on the first date. We talked about kids, talked about future, talked about aging parents.
It matters.
Like the really heavy, deep stuff. And that is what I think connected us to want to even go on the second date. Because I really felt like I left knowing the essence of who he was. But I'm not recommending you do this because dating is a whole other difficult place. But like what I'm taking from this, I don't know if you are as well, is that like, wouldn't you love to apply this to your dating life?
Absolutely. And I think I tried to. I probably haven't knocked it out of the park as effectively as Samir has. But I mean, looking at both of you guys both have stories of your partners that you're with, your life partners now, where it clicked quickly because you got to the big stuff right away, the important stuff right away. And then things moved very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely an inspiration to see that. And, you know, Samir, you're just someone, I think this is why we connected to. You're someone who oozes authenticity and vulnerability. And I don't think those are male or female traits. I think those are things that make you relatable and likable and lovable to any man or any woman or anything in between. So, look, it is Men's Health Month. If there's guys listening to this right now, and I consider myself lucky. I think one of the reasons you and I bonded is because I have a fantastic friend group that we share things. We've talked about things. The guys are vulnerable. We've cried in front of each other. We've shared, things that I didn't think I was ever going to say to another dude before. And I probably wouldn't have in my 20s or even maybe in my early 30s. If there's a guy listening to this right now who's like, man, I want this with my partner. I want this with my male friends, my bros, the guys with, sometimes you could be friends with someone your entire life and never get past that surface area of machismo and sports and talking about chicks and whatever. If someone's listening to this right now and they want to be the leader in their group and break through and be like, man, let's get vulnerable. Let's get real with each other after all this time. Is there a simple, actionable first step you can suggest to someone who just has not been there?
Yeah. Firstly, it's not easy. I think that's the key thing, is understanding that if you're going to be that guy, the one that decides to take that first step, it's not an easy one because there's a possibility that it won't resonate, it won't land. And then you have the hard reality of whether these people that are in your life are people that you can have that relationship with. That's a whole other conversation. But if you're going to do that, I would say start with, pick a subject, something that is happening to you in your life, because people will know if you're making something up. Start with something that does matter to you. Maybe it's, you're thinking of proposing to your girlfriend, or, your job is giving you a little bit of anxiety because there's layoffs happening and you don't know what's going to happen there, and, you're a little anxious about it. Pick a subject that matters to you, truly matters, and just say, hey guys, can I talk to you? There's something going on and I just want to share it because I'm struggling with it. When you use that kind of language, I think people immediately understand, even if the recipients are not there. I think we're all well in tune to understand, like, oh, my friend needs me. Mm-hmm. They may not be able to offer solutions, but what you're doing is you're modeling something for them. You're showing them, like, hey, this is what vulnerability looks like, because this may very well be the first time they ever see it, right? And so if you model it for them, you're like, do you have any advice? Has this happened to you? Like, when you ask that follow-up question, it gets them thinking. And in that moment, if you're lucky, they'll go, yeah, actually, I recently, maybe not me, but my brother got laid off, and, it was really hard, and it got me thinking, and now you're sort of building that conversation. And it takes repetition. It's not a one-time thing, right? I've had thousands of these conversations now over the years, and I'm still learning things. So it takes repetition. And if that person doesn't reciprocate, that's okay. Try with another person. Or even with that same person, try again, because they might be like, whoa, okay. Just waiting again for another opportunity. Mm-hmm. They go home and they think about it. They're like, I kind of wish I talked about that thing that was bothering me. Mm-hmm. I hope he asks me again, because they won't be the first ones to move. So it takes courage. It's going to be hard. You might fail, but that's okay.
You strike me as somebody who is doing the work constantly, right? Working on yourself, you're learning, you're curious.
Yeah.
Is it then difficult within certain friend groups to sort of, have people meet you where you're at? Or is that not the expectation, when you're sharing in this vulnerable way? Is it just sort of like, look, I've got this stuff that I've learned, maybe I can impart some knowledge? Or does it become, because ultimately in friendships, there's give and take.
Yeah.
Are you still getting what you need when you're sharing in that way?
I am. I'm fortunate, similar to you, in that I have a group of men in my life that I can turn to when I'm the one in need, right? Like, I don't want to position myself as the expert who has it all figured out, because I don't. I'm stumbling today, tomorrow, the day before it happens, right? I've got friends in my life that I can turn to, but I also know that now that I know the things that I do, I take on this responsibility, self-imposed, to still share and be the one to share with others, even if I know they're not there, because one day they will be. And the way I know that happens is because I've had people come on the podcast who have reached out to me months later going, hey, I'm struggling. I don't know who to talk to. Can we chat? That just happened last week. He came by, we sat down for coffee, and he just started telling me about his life, his relationship, and some of his struggles. And we've now built a bond, and we met through the podcast, right? So I know that leading with vulnerability will always create an environment where someone else feels safe coming to me. But I'm still ensuring that my cup gets filled by the people in my life where I need that, and not everybody needs to play that role. Mm-hmm. I've got a small group I can rely on, I can talk to. Each one offers varying perspectives, and each one offers different solutions and advice, and I'll piece out what I need from that. But also it's important for me that I'm able to talk to my wife, Tamila. But simultaneously, for the guys listening and watching this, your partner is not your be-all and end-all when it comes to being your therapist, your business advisor, your friend, your confidant. One person can't be all of that, which is also why it's important to have a group of people around you.
I want to bring it back to the podcast as we come to a close here. I read a stat that said upwards of 95% of podcasts are not profitable. You're just such an amazing story, and maybe it all comes back to authenticity. And I don't know if there's any advice to give to people who are just starting out in the podcast game, because this is true to you and this is your lived experience. But you're obviously, you're swimming upstream here. You're the exception, not the rule. You've developed this podcast, which is still relatively young, right? Gent's Talk has been around for
3 years.
3 years, and you're on Air Canada. You're on WestJet.
Your now Latam.
Yeah,
as of November 1st.
Your podcast is doing so well. Congratulations on that edition since we last
on the Pooja and Gurdeep show.
On the Pooja and Gurdeep show.
Right.
That's the marquee.
That's the, yeah.
If
Premiere
folks,
now, prime time.
Right? If folks are just starting out with a podcast, YouTube channel, what have you, right? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. Podcasting is hard. As you know.
Don't do it. It's hard.
Run. Bye.
I don't think people really understand how much work goes into it. It's not as simple as, like, this part here, this is the easy part. This is the shortest part of the entire cycle of a podcast. The work you have to do in guest sourcing, scheduling, finding a place to record, and then the post-production stuff, the social clips, all of that stuff. Like, there's so much time that goes into it. And then there's the actual content piece. I knew that for me personally, if I sat down and spoke in front of a camera, just face to camera, maybe my friends would tune in and that would fade away rather quickly, because we have these conversations all the time, so it's nothing new to them, which is why I took the route of making my guests the content, because I'm never going to run out of content that way, right? But also know that consistency is hard. Like anything in life, you can't publish a podcast on the first Monday of the month and then be like, we'll see when we publish episode number 2. When you build an audience, they expect to know when your episode's coming out. Same time, same day. They're expecting it. They're waiting for it. That's why they subscribe. That's why they follow. And also focus more rather on trying to get people to follow and subscribe and rate the podcast, because that's the new key metric, right? In terms of making it profitable, I mean, I have no problem being transparent here. Anything in the last 3 years since I've launched it, I haven't taken a single penny from it. Everything has gone right back into keeping it viable and extending it. And that's only because there's a mission behind it. If this was just a podcast about something else that maybe didn't matter so much to me, I wouldn't do that. It's not great business advice, but it's because to me, doing that ensures that it's consistent, it's long-term. And you know what? If nothing else, the podcast has given me opportunities that I never could have imagined.
So then you're just doing Uber on the weekends then now.
It's funny. Mila and I sometimes talk about doing it for like a couple hours. We haven't done it yet for two reasons. Number one, as a reminder of, for all the things that I might be thinking, I'm like, oh, this isn't going well. Look at how far I've come. And two, just to kind of rekindle that idea of like being in a car together for a few hours, driving around.
Heat bag in between.
Heat bag in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
She's bought you a bunch in different colors now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, podcasting is hard. It's, you see a lot of like, oh, Joe Rogan signed a $100 million deal, or Stephen Bartlett, 100 million. Like, those are podcasts that we're talking about millions and millions of views per episode multiple times a week. Right? Like, that money is just not being floated around. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I would recommend maybe starting it as a side project before diving fully into it like I did.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, regardless, you are building something beautiful, right?
Thank you.
And I think that's really what's important here. And it's clear that you're passionate about it. Thank you for taking the time to chat with
thank
us.
you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I was so excited to come here and have this conversation.
We're excited to have you, and I told you were going to love him. He's great, isn't he?
You did tell me that.
Yeah. I'm like, how do I describe him? I'm like, he's just great. Just look into his eyes. He's telling you the truth.
I got lost a few times.
Right?
I'm not
So
going to
did
lie.
I.
Thanks so
I
much.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Pooja and Gurdeep podcast.
Listen to Pooja and Gurdeep live weekday mornings from 5 to 9.
Only on 98.1 CHFI.
Toronto's perfect music mix.